He'll be here with off the ship. I just ordered this GEARWRENCH 77-piece tap and die set. I ran into some issues. Didn't have all my tools from the old shop. I didn't have a tap here. Then I overcompensated by buying this, and I found my old taps, and it's a whole long story, but I don't know. I figured I'd unbox it in case anybody else is thinking about buying this thing. Here we go. It's GEARWRENCH 3887, 77-piece standard and metric ratcheting tap and die set. This is the old BluePoint that I have. This will be a pretty quick little journey down tour view lane, but I guess we can do a little comparative analysis. So this is an old set. It's pretty nice, made by BluePoint, and I think just kind of compare the fit and finish to that and maybe how it works. I've never used a ratcheting tap and die set, so I'm excited about this. GEARWRENCH, they came out with the first ratchet wrench set, which kind of put them on the map, and I've always thought they were pretty good. I've owned a fair amount of their tools. You know, I had the luxury of using, Snap-on and BluePoint and Matco and some really nice wrenches, and then, for my own personal stuff, I didn't have the unlimited budget, so I try to settle with, nice-ish tools, and this kind of fit the bill. It's a pretty sick looking kit here. That is awful slick. I, in the past, have done probably 90% of my tapping with a tap, an adjustable wrench, trying to keep it centered, and rarely do I get out the T-handle. If I have something critical, I'm probably on a machine, maybe a lathe or a mill, tapping off the tailstock. Comes with a nice tap drill conversion chart, which I don't have one here, so that's pretty nice. This is super handy to have. Starrett made a nice one that everybody seems to have laminated and stapled to the wall, so this is handy. I'm going to hang on to that. And that's so far as instructions go. I think that's all that came with. You check the quick rundown here, but it's tap and die set. So, if you need instructions, you probably get on YouTube and watch a couple videos. So right off the jump here, the labeling is rather inconvenient. It's not embossed with a different color, so that can be a little tricky, especially with glare of like LED lights. But again, the BluePoint doesn't even have any labeling, so you always pivot these things around and look for the number anyway. So that's not a huge deal. So we're looking for 1/4 Here's 1/4. Fit and finish is nice. It's nicely stamped. It's not printed. Some cheaper taps, they'll just print on there in a couple months of use, and good luck finding out what they are. All right, let's try to set this thing up and do a little tapping. So over here in the BluePoint, couldn't be any easier on setup here. There's two parts. You pivot this down, and Bob's your uncle. Over here, looks a little more complicated. So we have 3882 as a part number. It's 110 thousandths to 191 thousandths. I suppose that's likely the tap size. This is on the smaller end of... It's interesting. So that's labeled as a measurement, and this is labeled as also a measurement, but a fractional measurement. So you might have to convert that over. That's not a biggie. I'd be willing to bet once you get proficient with these, use them a few times, you can pretty well tell what goes where. So I don't see that being an issue. But so it looks like it gives you the option to tap with a T-handle, which is rather nice. And then just the slots, and you line it up, clicks in. Look at that. That's pretty sharp. This is an extra bit, but Really didn't take much more time. Wasn't hard to figure out. We just have a linear motion rail guide bearing that I want to tap for quarter 20. So, start tapping. Something that didn't occur to me till just now, neither set comes with a bottoming tap. So, hey, I'm gonna get a little oil in there. So that was what I was curious about. You have to flip this. And there's no neutral position or locking position. You know, a big battle you fight with tapping is angularity. So being perfectly vertical is important. And with this, you don't actually have to swap positions at all or, you know, chase your hand around. And that is unexpectedly convenient. I guess I've been tapping for so long with T-handles. I guess technically this T-handle, non-ratcheting T-handles and adjustable wrenches that I never really thought about that, but yeah, this is pretty slick. That's convenient as well. Swap back to the BluePoint. I'm sort of whacking the camera every time I come around, and that was not an issue whatsoever with that gear wrench ratcheting unit. So that's could be a game changer for tight spots. Gear wrench. Too far with the handle here. Again, pretending there's an interference. Wow, that is something else. Again, I never really thought about it. And with a adjustable, you do have 180 degrees of swing, but it's a pain. And you can get pretty good with adjustable. You know, you do enough of them. Yeah, let's break the chips here. It is aluminum, and I'm starting to tighten up a little bit here. Pops off very nicely. Brass thumb screws, I don't know. That's the only most convenient thing I had. And there's no perceivable difference between the two taps. Not that we expected there to be. Pretty slick. I can see how this would be real handy in some important circumstances. I'm not gonna use the die to chase anything today. However, I am interested to see how this works. This is a M12. Look at that. Ah, cool. So there is a lathe type steady rest situation here where you can adjust the 3 points to, I guess, prevent you from walking off center. That's pretty neat. And there is a pass-through, so also convenient. Locking Allen head cap screw. And lastly, you always take it out and use a wrench like you're probably going to anyway. It's got some pipe taps. 1/8 inch MPT. It's always convenient to have. 1/8 inch BSP. So you don't see a lot of British standard pipe thread, parallel or tapered, you know, in home shop situations. You know, on the ship we see them with a lot of hydraulics and specialty equipment, but I think that's kind of an odd tap to have. But I don't know if I've never owned one, so at least at home. So, hey, that's nice. Thread checker, SAE. metric. I suppose the BluePoint set also has a thread checker. These are, I mean, it's pretty comparable to the BluePoint set. Boxes. These are a little tough to get off, which generally indicates that they'll be around for a little bit, so that's nice. There's nothing worse than dumping one of these things out because the latches aren't, not a lot of movement there, so that's great. Yeah. And lastly, the price. So I was cruising along Amazon, as you do. I knew that I needed a tap and die set. Somehow Amazon knew I needed a tap and die set, so all the tap and die sets started popping up. They're pretty expensive. For that price, I was gonna find the BluePoint. This came along, and I thought it was a mistake at first. 113 bucks. I was like, oh wow. So I bought it, and it was supposed to arrive in a couple days, and then, you know, Amazon listed as unavailable. I have seen over the years a couple screw ups on Amazon, and I kind of thought that was the situation, because 113 bucks for this is like really amazing deal in my opinion, relative to what tap and die sets cost elsewhere. Any name brand, Craftsman, even SK, but you know, forget about it with a Snap-on, BluePoint, Proto, tap and die set. You're talking double, triple, sometimes quadruple the price of this. So I just kind of waited for the email saying, you know, this is unavailable. You know, we'll refund your money, and it never came. 3 weeks later, GEARWRENCH shipped and arrived, and I could not be happier. For 113 bucks. I mean, this thing is the deal of a century. Also, I think my last kind of tool review, as I'm working on stuff, oh, you know, this pair of Icon pliers, I was comparing them to Snap-on pliers. I don't know. This is what I think about when I work on stuff. I think the last time I did a little video, 9 people watched it. So this is like wildly unbiased. I am so far away from any sort of sponsorship, it's laughable. So GEARWRENCH will never see this. Here's what it is. So therefore, this is a genuinely unbiased review. You know, BluePoint, they're great tools. Snap-on, all the ones we listed. But for the money, and particularly with Craftsman sort of on the outs, I think GEARWRENCH is a very, very reasonable alternative. And for $113.38, like, you cannot beat this kit. So if you'd like to see these in action, head on over to the channel. It's off the ship. I will for sure be using these, you know, tapping off the tailstock and lathe, kind of like light industrial. I'm rebuilding an engine. I'm doing some tractor repairs, that kind of stuff. I feel like I can run them through the paces. Over in the channel, you'll see all those things. And if you'd like to give us a like, much appreciated. Been on the other side of this conversation a million times. It's a little clunky, but it does help. And yeah, pretty excited about this, and we'll catch you on the next one.